Breaking tonight, a small boat migrant who openly called for the death of all Jews has been released from prison and is now back on Britain's streets. Abu Wadeh, a self-declared Hamas supporter, served just 9 months for illegally entering the UK by dinghy. Oh, so it can be done. We can jail people for illegally entering the UK. That's interesting. This same man live-streamed his crossing on the internet, posted extremist propaganda online, and was filmed also brandishing weapons, including that rifle there you can see on your screen. Yet, tonight, of course he is, because this is Great Britain 2025, he's free. He's a free man. He's been tagged, housed in a bail hostel at your expense, and has already been lodged an asylum claim to stay in the UK. He also called for the, quote, death to all Jews. Tonight, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp and Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick are demanding his immediate deportation. And now, the Home Office have said, quote, all foreign national offenders who receive a prison sentence in the UK are referred for deportation at the earliest opportunity. But, crucially, they've refused to confirm whether he will indeed be deported. Jonathan Liss is here, Aman Bhogal and Leo Kearse. Leo, the more interesting point of this story is not that he's been released and is, back on British streets. Of course he is. It's the fact that the country, jailed him for 9 months for illegally entering the UK by boat. So it can be done. It
can be done. Apparently, it is a crime to be an illegal migrant. And after the story that we've just covered about Jews not feeling safe in the UK, the government's just releasing onto the street this man who's openly professed the slaughter of Jews. He's admitted to sending burning kites into Israel, apparently, a man was telling us. And so this is somebody who's allowed to roam the streets. No wonder Jews don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. Personally, I think Jews are the canary in the coal mine in the UK. Like, we've seen Islamists across the Middle East, across a lot of other parts of the world, and North Africa, exterminate and drive out Jewish populations. And as the numbers grow in the UK, and we just accept people into the country who have these attitudes, and we're like, oh, well, you've got to go to prison for 9 months and then release them onto the streets. This is only going to get more of a problem.
Aman, so the Mail on Sunday article where this comes from, this is their exclusive, it says they've released the Palestinian gun-toting militant. He's from Gaza. He came from Gaza. Abu Wadeh, 34. He served 9 months behind bars for the crime of illegally entering the UK on a dinghy. He's a known Hamas supporter. He posted about his freedom from custody on social media, and he has already lodged an asylum claim to stay in the UK. Interestingly, he was released from prison some while ago under Labour's early release scheme, and then was recalled back in for breaking his licence. I mean, the whole thing is just a joke, isn't it? And again, I'll just ask the question to you. It just shows that we can, if you want to, bang people up for coming on dinghies. Why don't we do it?
Indeed, and not just that. I think the bigger question here, Ben, is why on earth is this man here in the first place? Right? He should have been picked up the day he crossed over onto the Kent coast and dropped back on the French coast. No questions asked. We should simply not be allowing unvetted, unknown foreign men, vast majority of them from the Middle East, people who we know after so many incidents are not in the interest of our country, in the interest of the safety of women and girls in this country either. What on earth are they doing here?
Yeah. Jonathan, being in America the last 4 or 5 months or so shows that if you want to do things, you can just do it. If you want to stop illegal migration, they've got rid of 2-point-something million people, 600,000 deportations, forcible. The rest have been self-deportations. If you want to stop migration, illegal migration, you can just do it. And it shows with this case that you can just jail people for coming on boats. And you can, if you want to, just turn them back safely to where they came from. So why don't we do it?
I don't really understand the story because what happens when people come on the small boats is that they then lodge asylum seekers and then they can't be prosecuted, as I understand it, for coming on the boats because they're asylum seekers, and that's a different, separate legal category. So something about this story doesn't really make sense to me because I don't understand why he wouldn't have just claimed asylum as all the other people do when they come on the boats, and that's why they don't face prosecution for coming over illegally. In terms of, things that he said, I think that there should be procedures in place for this kind of thing, and that if people are released from prison, as everyone is after they've served their sentence, then they have strict conditions applied to that in as normal, and then they have to face rigorous supervision. At least that's how it should, well, at least that's how it should be.
I trust the state to do that.
I'm not saying it always works, but I'm saying that's how it's meant to be. If he's committed a crime, then he should be tried for that crime.
He's on electronic tag now in some unknown bail hostel.
Maybe the Labour government could, send him back on one of those carousels, one in, one out. Maybe they could import another Hamas supporter instead of him. I mean, this is a complete joke.
I'm sure there's plenty already.
This is a complete joke. If it wasn't so serious, it would be literally, this is panto season all year round from the Labour government, right? One in, one out. We are paying them now to be sent away. We're having this transfer deal with the Albanians or whatever it was. Nothing is going to work until we start shipping them back to France.
Okay.
And you know what? It's been done. It's been done at least 3 times in the last year under the Labour government. Very quietly, boats from the UK, the Coast Guard and the Royal Navy have actually docked back on the French coast and done it. So why can't it be done every single day?
You can't return people to French territory.
But it's been done.
You can't send people to France.
Why not?
Unless you have an agreement.
What are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
What
are they going to do?
We can just do it.
It's technically an invasion.
Yeah, we're an invasion, and that's we're being invaded.
Trump sent people back to Colombia, to Venezuela.
I don't think we can invade France, Leo.
It's not invading.
Yeah, we totally can. We've done it before. We've got a rich heritage of invading France.
Okay.
And you know what? We paid them more than £1 billion to take back.
Yeah, but the French. Let's be honest. The French don't care. Why would the French want to help Britain? And it's not some political comment.
And
why would they want to take back their own migrants?
If they're not agreeing the normal, decent way, working with us in a diplomatic way, then you go and drop people back.
This whole conversation about let's work with the French and get more cooperation. They do not want to work with us. The French.
Well, that's obviously not true because there is now an agreement in place with France.
We need to stop
an agreement.
We need to stop thinking about working with people and think about conquering people again. Like Britain was great when we had that attitude, and France wouldn't be laughing in our faces, taking our money and not doing any of the things it's supposed to be doing if we had a mighty armada.
We've done enough prostrating in front of the French. It's about time we stood up for our own national.
Jonathan, can I say...
So we're fighting basically the Battle of Agincourt again, is that what?
Yeah,
right.
Great idea.
Well, I'd rather do that.
The guy's coming up with solutions.
I don't think it's a serious proposition.
Can I tell you what President Trump has done in America? So countries who initially didn't want to take back their illegal migrants, he threatened them with tariffs, pulling trade deals, maybe even worse. And eventually, I think it was Colombia in the end, the president of Colombia said, hang on a minute, I will send you my own private jet and we'll bring these people back. So they strong-armed them into taking
Well, I don't think that strong-arming people is a good tactic in general, but you do actually, you have had an example, had a version of that with Shabana Mahmood threatening countries with visa blocks if they don't cooperate with that. But obviously, the UK doesn't have the clout that the US has, and I don't think that Trump's policy on immigration is anything that we should be copying.
OK, let's get some views from across the pond. Louise Mensch, former Tory MP, is down the line again, joining us. Louise, does this go to show, maybe you'll know as a former politician, this guy was jailed for illegally entering the UK on a small boat, so why can't that be done in the other 50-odd thousand cases this year?
Well, that's the first of 2 questions. Very good question. If it can be done to him, why can't it be done to anybody else? And the second corollary question is, since they were able to literally lock this guy up for the crime of illegally entering the UK, why did they then let him go after he committed the crime of saying that he wanted to kill all the Jews? That kind of hate speech is also a crime in Britain. How come they could lock him up for the one and not for the other?
Yeah, and he was released, laughably, of course he was. He was released under Labour's early release scheme to free up prison space and then recalled to prison for breaching his licence. It doesn't say what that breach was, but he was released, did something wrong again, and then got hauled back in.
Yeah, and now they've let him go while he's threatening half of our fellow citizens. This is a guy who, when he was in those little boats sailing across the channel, he put it all on TikTok. The whole thing, basically laughing at us. When you look at him, you have to say, this guy is winning and the British people are losing because they are literally making fun of us and our freedoms, and they're kind of right to do so. We've let him out in defiance of our own laws. It's not legal in Britain to go around threatening to kill an entire group of people because of of their race or their religion. But he did it, and yet nonetheless Labour let him out.
What do you make of President Trump? We just that discussion there with Jonathan Liss about forcibly, forcing other nations' hands to get them to take their migrants back, their people back. I can't remember the South American country. Maybe you can, but there was a big row. Maybe it was Colombia. They refused to take anyone back. President Trump threatened them with all sorts of sanctions and tariffs and God knows what. And eventually, they sent their own private jet to pick them up.
I think it was Colombia. And look, as the great socialist firebrand Tony Benn said of Margaret Thatcher, she's a signpost, not a weather vane. And whether you like Trump or not, you have to admit that he is a signpost. He has this ideology. He's going to stick to it. And frankly, what his views on who should and shouldn't be in the United States, one of his strongest points with the public. Even though his overall approval rating is not so high, his approval rating on immigration is through the roof. And I think people do have to acknowledge that the American public want what Donald Trump is giving them on this matter.
My panel's still here. Jonathan Liss, it is Colombia. So in January, President Trump said he threatened to whack Colombia with 25% tariffs and sanctions if they didn't take their migrants back. Why can't we do that to France?
Trump really loves his tariffs. Well, I don't think that we should be threatening France with tariffs. The EU is our biggest trading partner. We've already clobbered ourselves as it is.
But we don't want their illegal migrants. That's
in
the
the
point.
single market. So tariffs are not the answer to any problem.
So you're happy to put our women and girls, their safety? No, what do you mean heaven's sakes?
It's so emotive, and it's
real. It's real.
It's not real.
What are you saying? It's not real that the grooming gangs aren't real.
The gangs were British people.
Are you saying that the girl who was abused in Epping by Hadoush Gebrselassie Kebatu, that wasn't real?
I'm not saying that there aren't individual cases. Of course I'm not.
Look,
so what's your good number? What's your acceptable number of cases?
That is a preposterous thing to say.
You're saying you accept a certain.
Let him answer.
Obviously, asylum seekers are human beings, and there are going to be bad people among them, statistically.
And at a higher rate.
No, I don't.
Yes,
no, I don't.
Measurably at a higher rate.
That's true.
It's 100% true, and you don't want to believe it because your religion tells you that diversity is a strength.
Well, I'm Jewish, and let's say it doesn't tell me that.
No, you're wokist. Your religion is woke.
Jonathan, can I just ask you, go back to this point about Trump threatening Colombia? Again, you said we don't want to cause animosity between our neighbours, but I mean, it works with President Trump. Why can't the UK get tougher with Macron and say, we're not going to be buying your sparkling wine, we're not going to be buying your cheese? And so,
it's not the 18th century anymore, and Britain is not particularly
President
powerful.
Trump's not an 18th century leader. He's cracked illegal migration overnight.
The United States has hard power, and it's using it, rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, but the UK does not have hard power in the same way. And we can't strong arm our neighbours into doing things we want them to do unless we want a complete breakdown in trade relations, which would actually not be great for our economy, which, as you've noticed, is not doing particularly well at the moment.
Well, it's Rachel Reeves' fault. Louise Mensch.
Partly Brexit as well.
Brexit.
Yeah.
Louise, is the UK in a different position, say, to the US? Why can't we just copy what President Trump does? They are a hard power, according to Jonathan Liss. Are we not a hard power? Or are we just a bunch of P words?
I'd rather be strong-arming somebody than be limp-wristed about this sort of thing, quite frankly. And although clearly there's only one hyperpower in the world, and it's the United States, Britain, I would say, has a lot more power than France. If we were to send the Royal Navy to put some of these migrants back on the shores of Calais, I really can't see the French Navy doing very much to be able to stop us, quite frankly. But we clearly don't have the will for that, and that is unfortunate. It's true that we need to trade with the EU. That's very true, but also they need to trade with us. And I do think that perhaps we should put some kind of a sanction on France, because otherwise you're just inviting them to send more and more of these migrants over. If you're not willing to say no at any point, you're not willing to back that up with some kind of an action, some kind of a sanction, then why should France pay any attention to what Britain wants? It will just keep on sending migrants over.
Yeah, good point, Louise. I've always said, maybe it's naive and maybe it's futile, but stop buying their sparkling wine, stop buying their cheese. We've got Nye Timber, we've got the loads of great wine estates down the south of England. Stop buying their rubbish. You're laughing, but
people are not going to stop buying French cheese and champagne, Ben. You say what you like about the French, they do food and drink better than the Brits.
That's not true. That's not true. We actually have more varieties of cheese in Britain, and you should start sampling them. Then you won't need these French cheeses that fund our asylum hell.
I love British cheese. Let's not go all Liz Truss. That is a disgrace here. I mean, I think that we should all be eating lots of British cheese, which is great. But people still want to eat brie and camembert. They might want to get some nice French food and some wines as well. I think the French wine industry is doing better than the British one. That's a controversial point.
This is exactly the defeatist leadership we've had from the Labour Party. I'm sorry. Look, we're the 6th biggest economy in the world.
What's wrong with cheddar and Nye Timber?
If we cannot stand up, I don't know what you're laughing at.
Because we can't compete with the French on wine. That is not a controversial thing.
Yeah, but we could beat them in a war.
This is not about...
All right,
yes, we could.
Louise, one thing I did find being in America, before I let you go, is they can't do... Is Louise still there? Louise, still with us? She's gone. She got bored of the cheese. Louise, one thing I did notice in America is they just can't do cheese stateside, can they?
Oh my God, they cannot. It's disgusting. It's orange and stringy, and they don't know what good cheese is. Honestly, they would faint if they had an actual piece of actual cheddar from Cheddar in England. They cannot cope with it at all.
I do look for a nice block of cheddar in the American supermarkets, but it's a bit spenny, so I'll leave it.
Just like everything else.
Thanks very much for your time. We'll catch up again soon.
Bring me back some.
Yeah, I will. Stay safe.
Okay.
Cheers, Louise.
They've got cheese tariffs.
Cheese tariffs.
Yeah.
Look, everyone's joking about this. I think it's a serious concept. If the country, stop buying their rubbish, just out of principle. Maybe
if you want to make a serious point, that if you try to put tariffs on the French, guess what? The French are in a trade bloc. It's called the EU. It's our biggest trade partner. They will put retaliatory tariffs on before you can say camembert.
You're telling me,
and that is not going to be good for our economy. And I'm sorry, we're outside the EU now. We are.
So you're telling me that all the 27 EU countries are going to be in unison to put tariffs on us with the French. Are you having a laugh?
It's called a customs union. That's how it works.
We could team up with America to liberate the EU.
That's exactly how it works. That's the whole point of the EU. That's why it was one of the reasons why it's a bad idea.
You do know it works on consensus, don't you?
Yes, and if you try to,
you really think Prime Minister Maloney is going to sit there with Macron and say, yes, you know what? I'm not going to side with the British in fighting illegal migration, which is affecting her country even more.
Italy is in a trade union with France.
Yes, and do you know?
And they have a common tariff.
They have a common tariff.
So
and do you know how they take decisions? They take decisions by consensus.
I lived in Brussels for 2 years working in the EU.
Consensus. How are they going?
Qualified majority voting. Yes.
So how is that going to happen?
And if you think for 1 second that Italy is going to side with the UK over France, you are completely deluded on this issue.
You cheddar believe it. Right. Don't worry about, guys, listeners and viewers, do not worry about the small boats crisis, because Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has released a statement. She's previously said these small boat crossings are utterly unacceptable and the vile people smugglers behind them are wreaking havoc on our borders. Protecting the UK border is my priority as Home Secretary, and I'll explore all options to restore order to our immigration system. gbnews.com/